So can you tell me now, walk me through this part with Chris, because I find it very hard to understand. So at some point he decides he's going to go, and Chris picks him up and is going to take him to the airport to go. So
Yeah.
what do we know about that? I believe Chris has talked about it. What do we know?
Um, so Chris was supposed to take him. They get in the car. They end up arguing. I'm a little fuzzy on like all of the details, but I know big picture. They get in the car. They get to the airport, and through the course of all of that, them talking, and I'm assuming from my memory, and I'm assuming that Chris is, trying to talk to him about his addiction, and
Mhm.
um, it ends up getting real ugly. Kurt decides that nope, you know what, not doing this. And they end up having a physical and verbal altercation in the middle of the airport, with Kurt ditching, running off and leaving.
Okay. What day is that? Do we know?
I believe that was the 29th.
Okay. So I thought I read somewhere that on the drive, Kurt was trying to get Chris to stop so he could actually get one last hit before he went
Um,
on the plane. Do
yes,
you remember
so
anything about that?
there is, because I was literally just reading. I'm trying to remember if it was this book. I think it's this other one. Because I was literally just that was me double checking my facts on the date of the other one and such. And so yeah, so the intervention was originally for the 21st, but before those involved could even be assembled, Kurt was tipped off and it was canceled. Novoselic admitted he had tipped Kurt off, feeling the idea would backfire and that Kurt would flee. I just felt so bad for him, Chris recalled. He looked so fucked up. I knew he wouldn't listen to it. Chris saw Kurt for the first time since Rome that week at the Marco Polo Hotel on Aurora Avenue. He was camped out there. He was delusional. It was so weird. He was like, Chris, where can I buy a motorcycle? I was like, what are you talking about? You don't want to buy a motorcycle. You've got to get the out of here. Chris invited Kurt to go away on vacation, just the two of them, to talk things out, but Kurt refused. He was really quiet. He was just estranged from all his relationships. He wasn't connecting with anybody. Kurt complained of being hungry, so Chris offered to buy him dinner at a fancy restaurant. Kurt insisted he wanted a Jack in the Box hamburger. As Novoselic drove toward Jack in the Box in the nearby U District, Kurt protested. Those hamburgers are too greasy. Let's go to the one on Capitol Hill. The food is better there. Only when they arrived on Capitol Hill did Novoselic realize Kurt didn't want hamburgers at all. He was simply using his old friend to get a ride to score drugs. His dealer was right there. He just wanted to get up into oblivion. There was no talking to him. He just wanted to escape. He wanted to die. That was what he wanted to do. The two men began screaming at each other, and Kurt bolted from the car. That's from Heavier Than Heaven. But
Okay. So what point then does Chris have him at the airport where Kurt punches him?
um, let me see if I can find that really quick because I, truth be told, did not go that far.
Well, what I find really
um,
strange is that, and I'm not going full conspiracy, like, oh, this never happened. That's not what I'm trying to say. But
right.
why does nobody ever say they saw Chris and Kurt at the airport? Why has there never been anyone coming forward saying that?
Uh,
Chris is 6'4" or whatever. He's this huge guy. Kurt is the biggest rock star on the planet, and he's probably got his Elmer Fudd hat on.
yep.
How did no one see this? It was at SeaTac. I
I
don't understand.
Yeah, I genuinely don't understand. Oh wait, here I think I found it. Um yeah, here we go. So that Tuesday reservations were made for Kurt to fly to Los Angeles and Chris was enlisted to take him to the airport. So that Tuesday would have been I think it's the 29th. But I can double check that in a second. When Kurt arrived at Chris' house, it was obvious he did not want to go. As they took the 25-minute drive, Kurt sobbed and yelled and screamed. On Interstate 5 near the Tukwila exit, Kurt tried to open the door and jump from the moving car. Chris couldn't believe this was happening, yet with his long arms, he managed to hold on to Kurt as he drove, even as his car swerved. They made it to the airport a few minutes later, but Kurt hadn't improved. Chris had to drag him by the collar the way a schoolmaster might escort a ruffian to the principal's office. In the main terminal, Kurt punched Chris in the face and attempted to flee. Chris tackled him and a wrestling match ensued. The two old friends brawled on the floor of the crowded airport terminal, cursing and punching each other like two drunks in an Aberdeen bar brawl. Kurt freed himself from his friend's grasp and ran through the building screaming "F you" as shocked passengers looked on. The last Chris saw of Kurt was his blonde mop turning the corner.
Okay, so those are two completely different stories.
Yeah.
Is this, did he only take him once? Why are these completely different?
That's a really good question. My guess would be is that it's from Charles Cross, and so there's the Courtney spin on it. Um, I
So
because
they
the
never
only
got to the
part,
airport. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. If no one saw it, they never made it to the airport.
yeah, because two people as famous as they are, and
Yep.
someone as big as Chris,
Yep.
and a huge altercation of this tiny little guy punching this big guy square in the face,
Security would have come.
in the middle of a terminal
Yeah.
with people supposedly looking on. Like, come on. Yeah, no, I don't. Like the only quote from Chris, it says Chris drove back to Seattle alone, sobbing. Chris had such a huge amount of love for Kurt, Shelley recalled. We both did. He was family to us. I'd known him for almost half his life. But even still, that's not sorry, I thought it was gonna be a quote from Kurt or from Chris. Um there's nothing here in Chris' own words.
Got it. Okay.
Um so that is odd to me.
Very.
Because I feel like something like that, if Chris is telling this story, there would be some actual quotes of, how it made Chris feel,
Yeah.
what he observed, how, throughout the whole thing. So yeah, I've never really bought that story per se.
Okay.
Because also, like, why was he so against going on the 29th, but then willingly
Went.
went with, a limo driver the very next day?
Yeah, I don't get it. Why, I know that Chris has said a few things about Kurt. I know he's kind of said he just never should have done it. He was out of his mind.
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay, so if the Charles Cross is all just Courtney's bullshit, what
Mm.
do you think that Chris did say that Kurt wanted to die? What do you think that any of that means?
I think it's easier for, and I mean, that's probably totally wacko to most people that it would be easier. But I think in the grand scheme of things, for his life to continue peacefully, Chris, it's easier to just go along with the narrative that is accepted and that's being put out there, um, than to try and dig for holes it, and knowing that Kurt was on drugs and all of that. I think he was able to easily convince himself that, he just opted out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's the only sense I can make of it anyway. Because I can't fathom him not fighting for Kurt more.
Yeah.
But there's also the piece of, despite Chris being an alcoholic, he was very judgmental of Kurt's addiction and
True.
drug use,
Yeah.
and it really kind of alienated them from each other. And I don't want to say ruin the friendship, but in a way, kind of, because I don't think Kurt ever trusted him again. Not at
Yeah.
least not the same.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I mean, if we look at the people that we know who don't believe the narrative that we've been fed for 31 years. We know his good friend Patrick Pine doesn't. We know
Hmm.
Lane Staley did not buy it. We
Yeah.
know Kurt's sister Kim doesn't believe it. We know that from the Isaiah Silva court case. We know that Wendy did not believe it.
Hmm.
Kurt's mom. So, I mean, we know Kurt's beloved grandpa, his grandma. So there are, these are two handfuls of people who loved Kurt, who would have also talked to him and seen him in that last week or two. So we're talking about
Yeah.
people who, um, people who did, he talked to Leland. We know that. So,
Yeah,
people who didn't say that he seemed like he wanted to go, or that he seemed like not the same guy, or that he had any sort of damage from Rome, etc. I mean, we know he didn't
yeah,
have damage from Rome. The autopsy would have shown that there was no damage from Rome. So,
right.
um,
Um, well, I mean, I know the one thing that I don't know, that always sticks out to me is he didn't ask me anything on Reddit, the Nirvana Reddit, Chris did. And like he said, I mean, this probably isn't going to be word for word, but essentially, that Kurt killed himself. But if you have any evidence of foul play, please take it to the Seattle Police Department.
the same people who
Um,
didn't investigate it in the first place.
yeah, but
Sorry, I
it's
love you,
odd,
Chris, but come on. Like, let's be
right?
real, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But I find it very odd that somebody, like, in my mind, if you fully believe, like, without a doubt, there's no chance of anything else. This was
yes,
a suicide. He killed himself. End of story. Case closed. Why throw that in there?
yeah,
Um, so that tells me that he's at least got some, I don't know, some questions, some concerns, some curiosities, some something.
yeah.
Um, and then there's also the other piece that really sticks out to me with Chris is after Montage of Heck came out
Mhm.
and Buzz did his review of,
The only valid review, in my opinion. Yes.
yeah, how much BS it was, blah blah blah. Um, Chris was asked after that in like an interview or whatever, like what his reaction was to Buzz's statements about Montage of Heck, and
Hmm.
Chris was basically like, "Oh, that's that's Buzz. We love him. It's okay."
Right, right.
But he doesn't say he's wrong. He doesn't back up or try and reinforce anything that was said in Montage of Heck. Um, he just kind of says, "Oh, Buzz will be Buzz,"
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
and tries to excuse, in my opinion, anybody that's thinking that Buzz was out of line or in the wrong for saying what he said,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
which
sense.
is it's an odd way. Like if you truly believe that he's wrong,
Yeah, of course.
why,
Yes.
like, so I don't know. Those have always stuck with me, and it's for that reason that I think that if he was shown the truth and
Hmm.
given the proper evidence, that um he would come to the truth. And
Well, he will be soon. Now Dave, I know Dave. So I thought in his book, he talks about Kurt's death, but I didn't think he ever really used the S word. In the past few years, I feel like Francis, Dave, there's been sort of a sea change where people talk about my father's death or,
mm,
Kurt's. It has not, I think things are changing a little bit. I mean, now it's amazing. Every time
yeah,
I go anywhere and I talk about Kurt, I had some security installed at my house. So just remember, I have lots of security. And the guy installing it, he and I were just having a chat and he's a few years older than me, but he's like, I'm like, well, do you know Kurt Cobain? And he's like, of course. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. We believe it was homicide, not, that he didn't take his own life. And he's like, oh, of course. Like, there's no one that I talk to who is coming back at me with like a real, I think that if we actually had some way to do a poll and
mm,
have a look at how many people now are at least open to the idea where they go, well, feed me some more information because I don't know, but something sounds
yeah,
really wrong. I've seen that shotgun. That does not
yeah.
seem right to me. So I feel like there's definitely been a sea change over the past few years and people, wanting to know more about what happened.
Without a doubt. And on the whole thing with Dave, you're pretty spot. I've watched a lot of interviews and clips and like anything I can get my hands on or find about them talking about Kurt. Um, I can't think of a single one where Dave is talking about it and he doesn't say, like, well, after Kurt died or when Kurt died, or he always phrases it that way. He never says died,
Yeah.
never,
Yeah.
or even took his own life, or like any type of anything like that, euphemism, whatever. So I think that's kind of telling.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's an open secret in the music industry. And of course, Dave knows. And this is, again, just my opinion. I think Dave loves Frances as he should. And I think he doesn't
yeah,
want to upset her, despite the fact that she is now no longer entwined with that horrible. woman who raised her,
Yeah.
who partially raised her. Thank goodness she had Wendy and Kim.
Thank
But I
goodness.
think I know Frances wants to live a quiet life, and I can understand how she is, focused on her own child and
Yeah.
but I hope that she does get some peace when this is changed. I think she
Yeah.
already knows, obviously, that Kurt never left her on purpose. So,
Yeah.
but hopefully, and I think maybe the thing that isn't perhaps impressed on these people, or they don't understand that people are still taking that they're still ending it because they think Kurt did. It's
Yeah.
not going
It's not
away.
over. Yeah.
It's
It's
not
not
over.
over.
And you look at kids going, well, Kurt's my hero. And then people saying, you can't have him as a hero. Look what he did. Like people giving kids shit for loving Kurt and respecting Kurt. And I think like such a, there is still so much sadness, negativity, and people causing kids grief and maybe, contributing to mental illness where it doesn't need to be, you know?
Yeah.
I
There's a huge
mean,
stigma. Like there's a stigma around like Kurt himself.
yeah,
Because the narrative and his reputation and all of that has been so massively shat on and
yeah,
distorted and twisted and
unfairly.
manipulated. And yeah, it's 99, well, maybe not 99. The majority of it is all BS, and it's
Yeah.
all Courtney's spin to, make her the poor widow and him, this helpless whiny junkie that,
She
was
saved
always
him
gonna
so many times, Rachel. I mean, really,
Lord
she's an
have mercy.
angel of mercy.
Yeah, let
Yeah,
me tell you, I'm more
yeah,
like the angel of death. Um, but yeah, so it just I at the very least, I cannot wait to see the huge change that will come from correcting the narrative and setting the story straight. Like,
absolutely.
regardless of what happens legally and with, Seattle police, obviously, I'm pretty sure and I hope that all of that goes our way. But I want his reputation and his legacy and the narrative to go back to the truth and what it should have been all along.
Great.
That he was this smart, brilliant man. Like, yeah, he was a little damaged and he was a little weird
Yeah,
and he was a
who
little,
isn't?
but so am I. So yeah, like,
Yeah, I mean, that's what made him so great. And he was kind. I get so many emails, people talking about, and I'm thinking, we heard from somebody who I plan to talk to soon and hopefully do the podcast with, but somebody who met him in Rome right after, did I not tell you that?
no.
Okay, well, let's tell everybody while I tell you. I don't think he'll
Okay.
mind. His aunt worked at the hospital in Rome, and he was a huge,
You
yeah,
did tell me that,
yeah.
but go on. Sorry.
So he was a huge Nirvana fan, and he begged his aunt to let him to come in to see Kurt. Now, I want to be very clear. Imagine being in the hospital. You've gone into a coma. You probably don't remember what's happened. We know Kurt was not super happy about anything that was happening with Courtney, all of it. And he said, as long as it's not paparazzi, promise me it isn't. Yes, they can come in and meet me. It was this guy and his girlfriend. And so I'm hoping to have him on the podcast, hopefully by the time this is going to go up tomorrow. But hopefully, if you're watching, I can't wait to have you on. I think your story is going to be so interesting. Um, but again, I wouldn't do that. And I think I'm a really nice person, but I would be in the hospital
Same.
feeling like absolute hot garbage and being like, are you out of your mind?
Like, leave me alone. I need some time to
Yeah.
recoup. Yeah.
So we're not fighting for some fucking rock star, some celebrity. We're fighting for a human being who made one bad choice.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't know. Is it a bad choice? I mean, he got beautiful Frances. Frances also had to deal with a lot of abuse growing up, I believe, from what the Isaiah Silva case says, et cetera. So I don't know whether it was a bad decision in the end or not, but I do know that, this has affected so many people, not just him.
No,
So,
absolutely.
and I think if people really knew how much, sorry, I'm getting a little upset about it, but if people really
Okay.
knew how important Kurt was to people still, and maybe if Francis and Dave and Chris and people who they know there's something wrong. Hey, you know
Yeah.
what? I'll just send you the peer-reviewed paper that we're going to have out next month that proves it was a homicide.
Mhm.
I'll send you the probability report that shows 99.8%. It's like 1 in 62,000 that Kurt took his own life. I will send
Mhm.
you those things. I won't send you the autopsy. I won't send you anything that's going to freak you out. I will send you the details, the science, and the facts.
Yep.
in a few pages, and I will show you why he did not
Mhm.
take his own life and how he could not have taken his own life. And then I know
When
that
you're
it's
ready.
going to suck when you're ready, and I
Yeah.
know it's going to suck having to deal with something, but I know it's in your head. I know it is
Yeah.
niggling in your brain, people who knew and loved Kurt. I know you know this, you know.
And as much as it is going to hurt and it's going to suck and it's going to be really effing hard at first,
Yeah.
think how much better it's going to feel once you know the truth and once you're able to process that
Yeah.
and come to terms with it and move on, knowing that the truth is out there, that people now know who Kurt really was and what really
Mm-hmm.
happened and what kind of person he actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that he didn't leave anybody by choice, least of all his daughter.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's there's no way that living in a world of denial and lies and manipulations and gaslighting yourself is healthier or better for you or should be preferred over a hard truth.
Absolutely. And when Chris says, there's that clip of him saying, and when a kid comes up to me and says, Kurt got me through this hard time, or I love Nirvana, and Chris goes, well, this one's for you, Kurt.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine
I
being
mean,
able
I've
to say
seen
that without
interviews
the,
from, I mean, it's got to be,
I'm sorry, go ahead, babe. Yeah. No, you're all
no, I
good.
was
No.
sorry. I was just going to say, like, I've seen interviews of Chris from, it's got to be like in the last 10 years where he's still talking about Kurt, like in the present tense, about how much he loves him and that he has dreams about him. And it's like they're together again and they're playing music. And like, this is clearly a man that loves Kurt.
I agree.
And I, I just can't wrap my brain around not wanting to do everything in your power to make sure that he gets the justice he deserves and that he's known accurately in the
Yeah.
history books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just hope that, to anyone out there watching who has information or wants to speak out about Kurt, like some of his amazing friends already have,
Mm,
like our good friend Patrick, who works with us on this every day, who's very close with Kurt. Um, please reach out to us. You don't worry about beautiful Frances. From all accounts, we know people who know Frances, and from what we've been told, Frances knows what happened to her dad. So no one is hurting her by doing this.
yeah.
And we certainly would never want to hurt Frances. We just want to we just want to bring justice for Kurt. And yeah, so that's we're really close. So one more thing to wrap it up, going back to the intervention. Do you believe that this was part of a larger plan to fit into a narrative to go, he had guns, he was not doing well, he was struggling with his addiction, he didn't want to, like, tell me how you think this fit into that plan.
Um, so I kind of have two working theories. I think that, yeah, it was either the beginning stages of um, getting her narrative started with everybody, what she wanted everybody to think. All of these professional business people that are really close and have them be witness to her actively trying to save him and um, et cetera, so that they can speak to, see, look, this is who Courtney was. She tried and she tried
Oh
and she
yeah,
did all that
yeah.
she could and blah, blah, blah. So I think it was either the beginning stages or it was her kind of last ditch effort to convince him um, of her way so that they could stay together so that she didn't have to go through with it.
Oh,
But I think it's right
interesting.
there
Okay.
kind of like at the crux, because I think if he had opted to go and had actually gotten clean and
Done
she'd been able
Lollapalooza.
to kind of get her hooks back into him,
Mm-hmm.
and convinced him, for them to stay together so that he didn't lose Francis and blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
um, he would probably have still been alive at least until he came to his senses again and decided to leave. But
Right.
but yeah, so those are kind of my two working theories based off of what I know.
Okay. Makes sense. And so then do you think Rome was something she did, like put the pills in his drink, or do you think that she just
Yeah.
took advantage of a situation?
Um, I think that they had a fight. He told her that he was divorcing her. Um, and that was her first attempt on his life.
Yeah.
And then the reason why I think she attempted and then maybe possibly gave him the option to fix it was that she was hoping maybe she wasn't like, since it hadn't worked and he was still here,
Mhm.
and didn't seem to remember what had happened, that she was going to maybe give him. I lean a little bit more towards it was the beginning stages, but I do leave room for the possibility of like this was her actually trying to save him and their marriage, and hope that maybe there's a plan B where things can work out to her benefit the other way.
Right, right,
With
yes.
Kurt sticking around.
Well, he would have had
But
more money then. So, I mean, she was seriously, we have so many reports of alleged abuse that she was physically and mentally abusing this person. How much longer could he have taken that? I don't know. So, whether she's like, oh, I mean, how much is 9.5 million? Of course, this is in 94, but how much does that translate to in more record sales, et cetera? Like we're talking about, again, you're talking about like compound interest of Kurt doing Lollapalooza, not just what he got paid to do it, right?
well, right. And I mean, I think there's also the piece of like, I think she wanted to at least try and talk him into doing Lollapalooza and get him in a condition where he could, so that she could get her hands on that money before he was gone. Like there's so many little, I don't know, strings that come off of it, possibilities, um, that I
Wasn't
try
it
not to go.
Smashing Pumpkins who got Nirvana's place in Lollapalooza?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
did you ever watch the movie Stand By Me?
Yeah.
So there's the kid, Will Wheaton plays this kid, Gordy, and his older brother Chris dies.
Mm-hmm.
And the dad says to the kid, he says to Gordo, he says, it should have been you, Gordo, or it should have been you, Gordy. I forget what she says, but
Mm-hmm.
this is my opinion. Should have been you, Billy. Um, So there we
I
go.
second
I'm
that.
just going to end up on that statement. That's my opinion. No one else has to. That's our opinion, I will say, since you
Yep.
shared that with
Yep.
me. But his actions in later times, I think a lot of people aren't a huge fan. So I'll hear about it in the comments. So it's all good. But
That's fine. We can handle it.
yes, exactly.
Disagree with
So.
us all you want.
Exactly right. So what, give me a line from a Nirvana song. We like to put something to see if you've watched till the end, just because it's fun. So give me a line from a song
um,
and please post that in the comments if you have watched this far.
I was literally just telling my husband this one earlier. Um, oh my gosh. And now it's totally escaping me. I'm so sorry. It's one of my favorites. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're just gonna go with Grandma Take Me Home because I can't think of it. And as soon as we finish, it's
Perfect.
gonna
Of course it is. Remember it for
it's
next
gonna
time.
come to me and I'm gonna text it to you.
Perfect. Remember it for next time. We'll put it in the next one.
Yes. Okay,
Okay, babe.
sounds
Thank
perfect.
you so much for going through all of this with me. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. It really helps the channel. And if you've watched this far, I recently started a Substack, which is like basically I'm just kind of writing about how this has affected us emotionally and mostly me and my journey and how as an esthetician, I now am filing freedom of information requests and at night and doing facials during the day. So interesting. It's free. Please join me. Rachel's going to do a guest post at some point soon, and
Yep.
it is a lot of fun. No pressure if that's not your jam, because it's not about forensics. It's mostly just about like how this has been emotionally over the past year and a half. So
Yep.
thank you
But
so
we hope to
much.
see you over there.
We do.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.